Good morning guys, and welcome to the Pots and Pans cooking channel. Today we are going to be cooking something. It'll be written somewhere around here. I don't actually know where. Don't forget to like, comment and subscribe to my channel because I want me some fake internet points. Let's get cooking guys. Alright, good morning guys, and welcome back to my home kitchen. Today I'm going to be going over the bolognese recipe that I have posted for you guys. So what you're going to need is approximately a tablespoon of olive oil, half a brown onion diced up. You're going to want 2 cloves of garlic crushed. It is garlic, so you can have as much or as little as you like. You'll want a carrot, which you have either diced or grated. Doesn't matter either way. I grated mine today. You'll want a stick of celery, once again, diced or grated, whatever you prefer. Approximately 250 grams of beef mince. If you wanted to use a different kind of mince, you're more than welcome to. You could use chicken, you could use pork, you could use a combination if you are so inclined. You'll need about 400 grams or a tin of crushed tomato, tablespoon of tomato paste, 2 tablespoons of tomato sauce, and some dried pasta. You might also be interested in adding some herbs or spices. Normally I'd recommend something like an Italian mixed herbs or an oregano or basil. And if you like chili, you can also add a little bit of chili, but that's entirely up to you. So what we'll do is jump over to my stove, and you'll see that I already have a pot of water on back there. It's just on a low heat. That's obviously to cook my pasta at some point. And we'll start actually preparing this dish. Assuming my stove wants to work today. Haha, great success. So obviously once you've got all your ingredients prepared, remembering that mine are now off to the side, you'll come over to the stove, and what you'll be doing is turning on your pan. You'll get a little bit of oil in there, so 1 tablespoon, which I'm totally measuring out. You can check that and everything. Who opened this? Jerks. So you probably can't quite see the oil. It is in there. Oh, that's how I want to show you. So just give that a swirl around. And what we're going to do to start off with is just saute off our vegetables. In case you're wondering, I have this little plate off to the side, just so I don't rest my spoons on the stove. I can rest them on the side. So I'll bring my chopping board across, and we're actually pretty much going to be sauteing everything on here straight away. So I'll throw my onion, garlic and celery in with the carrot all at once. You'll hear that hopefully that's starting to sizzle away already. So what we need to do with this one, I'm going to leave it on a high heat. I'm going to cook that off for probably 4 or 5 minutes, just so it all starts to saute off. The garlic and onion will start to smell nice and delicious. They'll start to turn a little bit transparent in colour. They'll go a little bit softer. So just off to the side of my stove, you might be able to see I've got a packet of beef sitting there. Just next to that I've got my herbs and all of my sauce ingredients. So the tomatoes, the tomato paste, ready to go. Now you may have noticed I had quite a lot of foodstuffs on my bench today. It's a little bit more than the recipe asks for, because I'm actually using this bolognese for this recipe, and I'll also be making a lasagna video very shortly, probably straight after this, to follow up. So I needed extra sauce so I can do both recipes. Lots and lots of food. So I need to keep sauteing this for just a little bit longer. You guys can probably see it's starting to change colour a little bit, but it hasn't quite softened up enough just yet. Keeping it on a high heat. So the amount in the recipe that I've given for you guys is more than enough for 2 people, but if you wanted to make enough to feed your family, i.e. 4 people plus, you'll probably need to increase the recipe, probably at least double it, depending on how many souls you have to feed. Don't mind me just opening my pasta. So, keeping an eye on your sauce. You don't want to leave it unattended for too long. You can just let it saute away, but you've got to keep an eye on it. I didn't walk too far, trust me. So once you're happy that that's starting to soften up, you can add your beef. Now, like I said, I'll be adding quite a lot today because I'm using this for 2 different recipes. But if you're following the recipe as per instructed, you'll probably have half to a quarter of this. So put that straight in there. One big old block of moo cow. So once you've got it like this, obviously you don't want to leave it sitting on your stove like that. So you need to use your wooden spoon to break it up. I have actually just moved it off the heat, but this way you can actually see what I'm doing. Camera's not quite centered enough. Perhaps it's too centered, who knows. So just using my spoon just to break it up. This is going to take a little while to cook this through because what we want to do is basically cook this until it all browns up and starts to fall apart. It is just a minced beef, so it will slowly but surely will sort of break down into smaller little pieces. It'll resemble just a minced beef. Just using a spoon to stab it, break it apart. If you see any big lumps as you're starting to stir it in the other ingredients, just use your spoon to break it down. Like I said, this will actually take a little bit of time. But while we're at this step here, and we're incorporating the beef, you can actually add the herbs and spices if you wanted to have any. If you're using fresh herbs, I'd probably add them closer to the end, because otherwise they just wilt up and turn to nothing. But if you're using dried herbs, you can put them in at this stage here, and it helps them release more of the flavours. So I've just added a teaspoon of oregano, and I'll add a teaspoon of mixed herbs as well. That'll give me heaps of flavour into the dish. Again, just using your wooden spoon, stir in those herbs. It should start to smell with those nice herbs being added. You can see that the carrot and onion and celery are slowly starting to mix in with the beef, which is what we're after. You can see a little bit of colour starting to come into the beef as well. But we've still got a ways to go. So once again, any big lumps, just use your spoon, just poke them, break them apart. You see that most of mine's actually starting to mince up now, starting to break apart, which is good. If I put it in the centre, you can probably see better. Oh, fancy. So you'll see as it's cooking away, it's starting to release a little bit of juices. That's just natural liquids coming out of the food. So we're just going to cook that down a little bit before we add anything else. Most of it's starting to brown up, so we're almost ready to start adding our next lot of ingredients. It's not the end of the world if you have any big lumps in your sauce, but it's much nicer if you don't, and it's much better for something like a lasagna if it doesn't have big lumps. And seeing as how I'm planning on making one soon, that's going to be beneficial for me. I see that all of those vegetables are starting to be well and truly incorporated, which is good. So if you wanted to add salt and pepper to your dish, you're more than welcome to. You could probably do it at this stage here, or you can do it right near the end. But it's better if you add it into the dish sooner, in my opinion. So next up, I'll add my tomato. It's quite a lot, so I've added double what the recipe asked for, so 800 grams. And I'll quickly give that a stir in before I add anything else. And then I'll add my tomato paste and my tomato sauce. And then we actually sit it on the stove and simmer it for about 10-15 minutes. Basically until it reduces a little bit and starts to thicken up. It will combine together. So, a big heaped spoon of tomato paste. And we'll add just a little bit of tomato sauce as well. So what I'll do with this one now is just turn it down slightly, and we'll let that bubble away for about, like I said, probably at least 10-15 minutes, maybe a little bit longer. It sort of depends on the volume you cook and how high the heat is. Just before I finish up with my video today, I'll crank up the other pot so I can get some of the pasta cooked off. So you can see how to do that. I mean, theoretically you could just read the packet, but I don't know. Sometimes it's nice to have a visual representation of what you're meant to do. Maybe you just like listening to me, who knows? So what you'll want to do for your pasta, you'll need a big pot of water on. You can add a little bit of salt or a little bit of oil to it. By adding salt, you're adjusting the boiling point of the water, and by adding the oil, you're helping or stopping the pasta from sticking together as much. Depending on what you're doing with your pasta, you might actually add oil after it's cooked if you're putting it back in the fridge, just by itself, which is something that can be done in commercial restaurants and things when they partially cook foods in preparation for using later down the track, but it's not a huge concern for people who are just cooking at home. You can actually put your lid on the saucepan if you want it to boil quicker, which I will do now if I can find the right size lid, which might be a trap. Not that that is far off boiling anyway. So by putting the lid on, basically you're just trapping in some of the excess heat, some of the excess steam, and it becomes a little bit of a cycle down there so that the hot steam goes up to the top, cools down a little bit and goes back down. It's a little bit of a convection cycle. Not that you're all that interested, maybe? Who knows? You'll see that after I put the lid on it boiled quite quickly, so I'm ready to cook that pasta straight away. With your pasta, you can put it in whole as you get it straight out of the packet. You can break it in half. It's up to you. Really doesn't bother me. Some people like it just how it is. Some people like to snap it in the middle. I usually just leave it how it is. Might just get a tiny little bit more. You never have enough pasta. It is one of my favourite food groups. Yes, pasta is a food group. I checked, it's in a book somewhere. Don't ask me which one. So what you need to do is just poke it in so it doesn't actually burn up the top, and you want to try and get it all submerged in the water as quickly as you can. If you leave it hanging out the side, it will burn or catch fire, so you want to make sure you can get it in as quickly as possible. Do that carefully. You can stir it in with a wooden spoon or some tongs. So in a few seconds, I'll just give this a twist. And most of this should start going into my water. Now I didn't actually add any salt or oil to mine. I'm only cooking a very small amount of pasta. It's probably enough for one big serve or two small serves in there. So probably around, I don't know, 200 grams maybe. So it shouldn't actually take too long. Basically you'll just follow the packet instructions. You'll be cooking it for approximately 8 to 10 minutes. And that'll pretty much be it. Once your pasta is cooked, use a colander to drain it off in your sink. carefully. Put it into a bowl, put some sauce on the top. Alternatively, you can put the pasta and the sauce into a fry pan and toss it together, or however you like to eat your pasta. Because this sauce is still going to take another 5 or 10 minutes, I'll probably just end the video and hopefully you'll have some description of picture up showing you what a finished product might look like. There is always going to be things that could be changed or altered. Alright guys, I might call it there. See you, bye. Enjoy life.